Hi there. Welcome to another webinar with the National Nonprofit Collaborative. My name is Dr. April Willis, and I am so excited to be speaking with you all today about marketing strategies for nonprofits. Essentially, we're talking about creating impact with limited resources. So we know that a lot of the nonprofits out there, we have incredible missions, we have big messages, we are creating change, we are generating a better community than the one that you stepped into. However, to get the word out about what you're doing and the good impact and the positive work that you're doing and the great impact that you're having, you have to use some marketing strategies, and they need to be effective marketing strategies. Oftentimes, what I see working with nonprofit clients is that you have these really big hearts, you have these really great ideas, and they're going to make such a difference, but only if people know that you exist, they know what you do, and they understand how they can find you. So this is where the foundation of your nonprofit organization begins. How can you execute your mission if people don't know you exist? They're going to know you exist through marketing strategies. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through several marketing strategies that you're going to be able to walk away and immediately apply. My goal here is to help you take it from theory to action or from planning to practice. We want to make sure that you feel equipped to go out and tell your nonprofit story as quickly and effectively as possible. So let's jump right in with our first ideas behind the strategy of marketing for a nonprofit. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is storytelling and emotional appeal. Basically, we want you to be able to share your powerful narratives using testimonials, incorporating video, incorporating photos, getting real life people who have worked with your organization to really tell a compelling story to your audience. So we want to hear from your clients. We also want to hear from your volunteers and your board members. We want to know from every seat at the table, what is it like to work with your particular nonprofit? What is the difference that you are creating, and how is what you're doing really making a difference? You can share data with us all day long. You could talk about what your vision is. You can talk about what your mission is. But what really resonates with people is understanding that emotional appeal, tugging on heartstrings, giving a specific case study or example of what one person's experience with your organization was like. We also want to focus in on some content marketing. This means that you're sharing regular blog posts, you're using social media platforms, you're creating and sending newsletters, maybe weekly, bi-weekly, every other month. It's up to you how you want to do that, but making sure that your content is being shared across all of the platforms, all of the channels, and you're making sure that your content has value, that you're not just constantly saying donate, donate, donate. I feel like that's something that I see with a lot of nonprofits is you're not really sure what content to share, but you're always making a plea for donations. That's not the best way to help people understand what it is and the impact of the dollar that they are giving you. So it's okay to ask for donations. You should be asking for donations. There should always be a donate button on every newsletter that goes out. There should be a donate button on your website, but that shouldn't be the only thing that's going out. When you think about content marketing, we want you to focus on things like telling stories, letting people know what need exists and how you're addressing that need. We also want to share examples of the growth that your organization has had. We want to talk about your staff and maybe professional development or training that they're going through. You want to focus on those strategic partnerships. Maybe you're doing some joint efforts with other nonprofits or even for-profits in your neighborhood or your community. We want to talk about some longevity studies. What happens to people 5 years after they've worked with you? Did you, for example, set a student up to go to college and then did they graduate? What are some of the stories that you can tell, and what are some of the ways you can put that new messaging out into the world around what it is that your nonprofit is doing and how you are different than every other nonprofit that exists? We also want to look at partnerships and collaborations. This means that we're talking about your collaborations with other companies, maybe even partnering with influencers, doing some cross-promotion work with other nonprofits. These are all great examples of how you can leverage an audience that already exists when you work with other people or organizations. So for example, when you're working solo and you just have your nonprofit and you're trying to build a really great, solid nonprofit social media following, It's good that you're doing that, but a way to jumpstart that is to start getting tagged in the following of the posts of other organizations that have larger followings. So you're essentially riding their coattails to organic growth. Now, the key here is you want to make sure that there is some alignment between the audiences. So, for example, it wouldn't be very helpful if you're promoting one thing and you partner with an organization that has nothing to do with it, and their audience might not be interested in what it is that you are doing. Probably not a great strategic partner. A strategic partner would be one where their audience likely also has a vested interest in whatever it is you are working on. So, for example, if you are an after school program for middle school and high school students, and you partner with a local ISD or a local charter school, there is already a vested interest because the students attending your program likely are already going to those schools. Another example would be if you are in a tech, if you provide like a coding class, for example, for students, you could partner with a local IT company or technology company because they're going to have people following them who might also be interested in volunteering or donating for your organization. So just be strategic about who it is you're partnering with and what those partnerships and collaborations look like. Once you've established those partnerships and collaborations, leverage them. Post about them in your social media, put their websites on your website so that you've got those backlinks that are being shared amongst each other. We also want to make sure that you're giving them shout outs in your newsletter. If you have any hard copies of paper products or t-shirts or swag bags, using each other's logos on those items are also another great way to partner and collab. Also, think about events. If you can work with other organizations in hosting galas and golf tournaments and 5Ks and all of the fun events that nonprofits are typically affiliated with, bring in those strategic partners as well. The fourth strategy we're going to talk about is SEO and online visibility. In order to optimize your website for SEO, which is search engine optimization, that means that you are looking at the keywords that your website should organically be including because they are the same keywords that people tend to use when they do a Google search. So if you work with an organization that can update your website, and you, for example, April Willis Consulting, we're happy to do that for you. But if what we'll do is we'll see, okay, what type of organization are you? What are all the possible keywords that have anything to do with your organization? And then we do SEO keyword research for you. You are welcome to do this on your own, but you're going to research what words people are looking for the most, and then you embed them into your website as often as possible, but as naturally as possible. So you can't, for example, just create one web page that has the same word copy and pasted over a million times. The Google algorithm will absolutely recognize that. And not only will you not rank high, but they'll oftentimes penalize you or pull your site down. So we want to make sure it's organic. We also want to make sure that you're leveraging Google's nonprofit grants program. So as a nonprofit, you are automatically eligible for thousands of dollars of Google ads, absolutely free. You just have to complete their application and essentially prove that you are a nonprofit organization. Once you have that, use those nonprofit ads every single month. That is a great way to increase your online visibility. Something to think through, which we're going to talk a little bit later about, is how you're using those ads in the terms of which audiences are you targeting with your paid ads, or in this case, your free Google ads. We'll touch a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Keeping the marketing strategies going, email marketing and automation. So did you know you can set up automated email series? These are newsletters essentially, or e-blast are another way that you might hear people discuss this. What we want you to do is to have them set up so that they're going out almost automatically with minor tweaks and updates throughout. So setting up templates, for example, and then updating those templates. We also want you to segment your email list for targeted campaigns. So for example, at the National Nonprofit Collaborative, we have segmented lists. We have a list of all the emails we tend to gather. We also have a list of people who are already members. We have a list of people who have shown interest. They've gone through demos, but maybe they just haven't pulled the trigger yet. And we are making sure that sometimes we have emails that go out to everybody across the board, but other times we have emails that might just go to those people who haven't signed up yet, or emails to people who have signed up. So we want to make sure that you are segmenting your email list so that you can send out targeted campaigns that help you reach your goals. We also want to make sure that you're regularly updating your donors on how their contributions are making a difference and include personalized thank you emails. This is another example of how email marketing can help take your organization to the next level. It's not always about asking for donations, it's also about building relationships. So if you have these donors and you know they've donated before, maybe the next time you send them an email is happy anniversary on your first donation, or happy birthday, or did you know we have an event coming up? And so just keeping those donors engaged in other ways and letting them know that you think about them even when they're not writing a check to you. When it comes to data-driven marketing, it's important that you track your metrics by using tools like Google Analytics or social media insights and email analytics, because we want to know how many people are you reaching when you make a post, how many people are engaging with your posts. We're also looking at, if you send out emails, how many people open the emails and then how many people click on the emails. All of this data can inform the type of content that you're releasing. So if you send out an email in 1 month, it has killer stats, and then the next month you send out an email and it's dropped drastically, we're going to look at that subject line. What changed? How did it change? We're going to look at the content in that email. Was it just one story? Was it a series of 5 or 6 informational blocks? How are we spacing these emails out? Were they sent back to back, or were they sent a month apart? We're looking at all of the variables that could inform how effective our email communications are. Similarly, when it comes to social media, if you use a social media scheduler like Hootsuite, for example, it will do analytics for you beyond what the social media analytics provides. In other words, it will say, this is what Facebook is saying, and this is how we've interpreted it for actionable takeaways for you to use. So for example, based on your Facebook analytics, we can see that your user engagement has decreased, and a suggestion is that you're not posting frequently enough. So here's a suggestion: increase your post frequency and do it during these days, during these times, and hopefully we'll see these numbers bump back up. This is all made readily available to you, oftentimes thanks to AI now, because there's so much that these platforms are utilizing AI for, and a lot of it has to do with data analytics. You can also do what's called A/B testing. A/B testing means you send out the same content, but you might position it a little differently. So maybe it's the same message, but you have 2 different photos, or it's the same email with 2 different subject lines, or maybe you have buttons with 2 different calls to action. And when you send them both out at the same time, you can do a side-by-side comparison. They call it A/B testing. And they say which one generated a better response, which one had more clicks or views or engagements or open rates, whatever you're looking for. So that's another way that you can use data to drive your marketing strategy. Another one is cause awareness days and hashtag campaigns. So if you are receiving our National Nonprofit Collaborative email, you'll notice that the first email that goes out every month is a list of cause awareness days that are coming up that month that we hope that you'll be able to leverage, that are in alignment with your organization. So for example, we have an email coming out at the beginning of next week. And in that email, we're listing all of the special days or holidays, those cause awareness days that are happening in the month of November. We're hoping that you'll be able to leverage some of those key dates by participating in cause-related awareness days with special campaigns or fundraising pushes. You can create and promote a unique hashtag for your campaign. And you can oftentimes, if you look into it and do a little bit of research up front, maybe the week before, you can see what other organizations have tended to have high presence during those awareness days, and see if there are opportunities for you all to promote each other through social media by tagging that organization and possibly having that organization tag you back. So remember a couple of slides ago when we were talking about those strategic partnerships in which you can essentially ride the coattails of larger organizations by pulling on their followers. You can do that with cause awareness days. Around creating unique hashtags for campaigns, there are 2 strategies we want you to know about hashtags. So hashtags can do one of 2 things. They can increase brand awareness if you're using a hashtag that is wildly used by everybody else. For example, hashtag conference. Hashtag conference probably has millions of hashtag followers that have followed it, that have used it, that have been tagged in it. However, if you have a specific conference, like for example, we have a client called the ZB Agency, they have the ZB Agency Conference. If that's a hashtag, that is going to be used by such a small population of people, really just the people who have been invited or attended that conference. And they may or may not be using that hashtag in their posts when they go to the conference. We always encourage them, please use our hashtag on all of your photos during the conference, all of your posts during the conference. But oftentimes they won't, and it ends up being the company or the organization that's the only one using it. It's great when you can have a hashtag that only belongs to you, because if somebody organically finds it and clicks on it, it's likely going to be populated with all of your social media posts. But you're not going to increase your awareness as much if you use something that's very specific to you. So that's why when you're using hashtags in your posts, you always want to have one that's very branded, like hashtag ZB Agency Conference. Then you also want to have one that's the really big one that can have a greater reach, like hashtag conference. So doing that would also be a great marketing strategy for you to consider. All right. Let's talk about this defining your nonprofit audience. We talked about this briefly a few slides ago as well. We just want to really hone in on this. So I'm actually going to share this screen with you. What we are looking at is defining your nonprofit's audience. So there are essentially three different audience types that your nonprofit is probably trying to get in front of: potential donors, potential volunteers, and potential clients. This means that the messaging for whatever marketing is going out, if it's social media, if it's an email, if it's a paid ad, if it's a video that you're creating, if it's an in-person event, whatever it is, you are really targeting your messaging for one of these three groups of people. Are you trying to get in front of people who are going to support your organization with their finances, people who might want to serve on your board or volunteer at your events, or people who could potentially use your services? If you're focusing on donors, we want to make sure that we talk more about what we were talking about a little bit earlier, those success stories, that impact. Every time you give us $1, here's the difference you're making, tugging on those heartstrings and appealing to that emotional connection. Now, if you're trying to find potential volunteers, which what we're seeing is if you are appealing to a younger generation right now, they are significantly more likely to volunteer their time than they are to donate their dollars. So something else to be aware of when you're thinking about your nonprofit audience. Where are you finding them? What event is it? And what type of person are you likely to see there? If it's an older person, you might be looking for money. If it's a younger person, you might be looking for volunteers and time. What we have known, what research is showing us, is that our youngest generation right now, that are now young adults and they're trying to find and create their way in this world, they are incredibly motivated through social impact. In other words, they want to know that what they're doing is directly having an impact on their community. They want to have this sense of belonging. They want to have a clear role and know that what I'm doing makes a difference, that I see that there's a need in this world and I'm here to fill it. They've got this need for personal fulfillment and change making, and they're really excited about the potential of being a leader in their community. This is what we're seeing with volunteers. So if you're trying to recruit volunteers, that's the type of message you're trying to get across to them. Now, if you're trying to reach your clients, if you want to let people know that your organization exists to meet their needs, to meet the needs of the community, maybe that's food, maybe that's shelter, maybe that's clothing or education or childcare, or you're working with animals at a shelter, whatever your nonprofit is doing, we want to make sure when you speak to clients, you are incredibly clear about what you do. Oftentimes, we tend to get a little foggy, or we tend to do a little bit of scope creep where we want to say we do one thing, but it just bleeds into everything else. The people who are on the receiving end of what you do want to be very clear about it. They don't want to hear jargon. They don't want to be confused by the ins and the outs. And they definitely want to feel like they can trust you. Because oftentimes, if you're a nonprofit, you're probably supporting a vulnerable population of some type. Vulnerable populations can oftentimes be skeptical of those who are pretending or posing to help them. And if you really want to make a difference with that population, it's really important that they feel like that they can come to you from a place where they trust you. They recognize that you're going to exercise confidentiality. They want you to be accessible. I know a lot of our nonprofits think through, for example, opening a food bank. I've been working with a nonprofit recently on this. One of the conversations we're having is, are you along a bus route? Because people who need food might not have the luxury of also having a car. And if you're going to be in a food desert, people might not be close enough to walk to your food bank. So are you along a bus route, or are you within a walking distance of a neighborhood? What are some of those accessibility features that you're considering? And then when you speak to those clients, are you speaking to them in their language? We don't want to come across like we're holier than thou. We definitely don't want to come across like we're their savior. Without us, you would be nothing. So it's really important that your messaging is respectful, that you use a tone with your potential clients that lets them know you understand that what they're going through should absolutely be treated with confidentiality, and you're here to be a support system, a resource for them. You want to approach it with care, and you want to be very clear as to what it is that you do. So you can see how that language that we're using from group 1 to group 2 to group 3 can vary drastically, because the group 1 people, they're way less concerned about accessibility and confidentiality. They just want to hear, like, tell me a story that makes me feel compelled to give you money. The group 2 people could still feel like, yeah, I absolutely understand approaching this with care, but I also want to know what's in it for me in a different way. How am I making a difference? Not how am I on the receiving end of this, like it would be for group 3. So I hope defining your nonprofit's audience, this is really important, and it does make a difference in the type of posts that we are putting out there. When we talk about those platforms, though, how are we getting our messaging out there? Not every platform is necessary. Sometimes I see there are people or organizations that are like, we want one of everything: Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. If it exists, we want it. That's not necessarily the best strategy, because if you want to strategically come up with content, you have to at first identify, where does your audience live? Because we want to meet your audience where they're at. Now, like we just saw, there could be 3 potential types of audience. Maybe your donors live on LinkedIn, but maybe your volunteers spend most of their time on Instagram. Maybe your clients spend most of their time on Instagram and Facebook. That's okay. So you're going to come up with, where do my donors and my clients and my volunteers live? Which platforms do I think are going to reach most of them most of the time? And then how am I going to assess the platform's strengths? So for example, Instagram, you've got to have visuals. You can't even post on Instagram without a visual. We need a photo or a video. You can't post without them. And then you also want to make sure when you're creating that content that you put it in the right dimensions. So Instagram videos are made to be vertical. You also want them to be shorter. They shouldn't be long videos like you would traditionally see on YouTube, and YouTube would typically be horizontal, not vertical. So you're thinking through these strategies in advance of creating your social media posts. LinkedIn, like we said, we might be pulling people who are potential volunteers or donors from LinkedIn, because that's more of a corporate feel, a business feel. We've got a lot of leaders and professionals who are on LinkedIn. So what are they looking for? And are they going to respond the same way to your cutesy videos or your visual storytelling? Or are they looking for impact reports and data and maybe one case study? So thinking about the content we put on LinkedIn and how that could look different than content we're putting on Instagram and Facebook. So here's a tip for you. Remember at the beginning, we said we want you to walk away with action items that you can immediately apply and improve your marketing strategy. One we've got for you right here is conduct a platform audit. Where are your donors, volunteers, and advocates most active? Where are your clients active? How frequently are you posting? What is the content that you're posting? Does it differ from platform to platform? Does it need to for what your organization does? How are you growing your followers organically? We do not encourage you to pay for followers. We know those services exist, but you're oftentimes just getting a bunch of bots. So how do we get in front of the right people at the right time? We also want to prioritize those platforms where your audience is already engaged. So there are always new platforms coming out. I know one of the newer ones is Blue Sky, for example. If you know that not many people are on Blue Sky, we don't need to spend a lot of time investing in that platform just yet. Let's spend our time on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Those are really where most people are. X, we've seen a lot of people move away from X once it changed from being Twitter, and they're still using character limits. It's still a little bit confusing for some people to fully understand that platform. So if you don't feel like your people are there, don't waste time on it. You can get a lot more bang for your buck with the first three. Okay, so when we talk about creating meaningful content, this is probably one of my favorite slides in this presentation. The 4 E's. I know it's at the bottom of this slide, but we're actually going to start there. There are 4 E's when it comes to content creation. So whenever we work with clients, for example, we create a social media calendar for the month. We plot the days in that month that we're going to make sure a social media post goes out. And then we categorize each of those days, either education, evergreen, entertainment, or engagement. We're going to categorize each of those post days with one of those E's, and that's going to drive the type of content that we create. So going to the top where it says quality content is key, storytelling that connects emotionally, clear calls to action. We're driving donations or volunteers or advocacy. So we want whatever content we choose to put in there, the content needs to be purposeful. What we want to avoid is nonsense content, content that makes people feel like there is no branding behind this, there is no purpose behind this. There should be, when they see your content, it should be branded enough that they know exactly who it came from without reading where it came from. And they should also understand the purpose behind it. So back to those worries. Education, it means you're teaching people something. These are your did you know facts or fun facts or in this day in history, or we're celebrating our third anniversary of this. I just saw there was a post today that sometime this week, I feel like we're celebrating 50 years of women being able to have their own credit cards. So those are the types of educational content. We want it to be something related to your organization. So again, back to the food example, if you're running a food bank, we want to hear about how many people, stats in your community, how many people are hungry, how many grocery stores exist per square mile. We're looking at how many pounds of food you give away every month. So thinking around oftentimes stats, numbers, facts, all of that falls under education. Evergreen are those things that can be recycled. You make it one time and maybe you post it once a month or once a quarter or once a year. So evergreen things can also include holidays. So we've got a happy Halloween post coming up. You can recycle that post every single year. You don't need to spend a lot of time on a happy Halloween post. Other evergreen posts could be maybe every quarter you have some type of like training that you offer people. You want to let them know that this online professional development course exists and it's free. That's an evergreen post. You just post it once a quarter and you remind people that it exists. An entertainment post is where you do something entertaining. You entertain your audience, but you can still do it in a way that makes people feel excited. So for example, entertainment posts could be if you have somebody on your staff do a fun behind the scenes or life in the day of, or we had, bring your pet to work day. So something that shows that you guys are a great organization and you know how to have a little bit of fun. You also understand that the work you're doing is so important, but so are the people behind the scenes. We're going to highlight some of them, or, a volunteer spotlight, for example, is another great way to do that. And then finally, engagement posts. Engagement posts are where you are soliciting engagement from your followers. You want them to like, comment, or share something. These are really great if you're running promotions. So for example, I just participated in one this week. I bought tickets to an event that's coming up, and they said, anybody who buys tickets, you're eligible for this big giveaway package that we're going to be giving away. It's got, a hotel stay, it's got gift cards, it's got some swag, all this great stuff. All you have to do is comment on the post that you bought your tickets, submit your receipt to this form, and then tag 2 people or share this post, something like that. It was comment, tag, and then complete a form. And they got me to do all of that because that promotional basket was so good. And I was going to the event anyway. I'm like, yeah, I'll take a couple of extra steps. That's engagement. They got me to engage with their post. And did you know every time you get people to engage with your post, it increases the likelihood of more people seeing your post. So whenever your post gets lots of likes, it stays on home pages longer. If it gets comments, guess what? It's if you tag somebody in that comment, now it's going not to just that person, but also to all the people that follow that person. So engagements are huge when it comes to marketing, which is why it's one of the most important strategies to use with social media. And then we go back up to the content types. Short form and long form. These are the different types of content. So short form are these short videos, infographics, testimonials. Long form content and more like the blogs and the newsletters and those impact reports that we were talking about. All of those types of content are important. We should not be saturating any one more than the other. So for example, an infographic every single week, that's too much infographic. People can't handle that much. They get bored with your content. They move on. They might even unfollow you. A testimonial every single week, that's too much. So what we want to do is ensure variety, and you can ensure variety by looking at the content types as a menu of options. All right, we're going to do a video today, an infographic next week, a testimonial the week after. We're going to write a short blog. We're going to share our impact report, and then we can start back at the top. And guess what? These are not the only content types. This is just a selection that we put together for this presentation. But of course, there are other types of content that you can throw in there as well. All right, we also want you to focus on building relationships, not just awareness. Now, this is really important because whenever I'm working with brand new nonprofits, a nonprofit, let's say that's less than 2 years old, and we say, okay, it's time to work on your social media. I first want to get very clear on what is your purpose behind having a social media page. And if they say, I want 1 million followers, I say that's not the right answer. So to begin with, when you are first starting out, the purpose behind your social media page is to build credibility. It is to let people know that you're real, you have a digital footprint, you're not a fly-by-night organization, you're not a stranger asking for money, but that you actually have a real social media page, a real website, and those pages are going to have transparency. You've probably seen transparency links on some of the business pages that you visited on Facebook before. That transparency page exists to let people know when this page was created and by who. And we want that. And I know sometimes it's like, oh, but I'm so new. They're going to see I'm so new. It's okay. We all had to start. We all had a day one at some point. So have your day one and be ready to build it over time. Social media strategy is a long game strategy. Social media strategy exists so that you build credibility, people know that you're real, and that along the lines, you're going to be gaining more followers. Some of the quicker ways you can gain followers, for example, on Facebook, if you have 1,000 friends on your personal page, you can then hit invite all on your Facebook page, and every single one of your friends are going to get an invitation to like your nonprofit page. So anybody who likes a page can then turn around and invite all their friends to like that page as well. It looks a little bit different on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, you must be an admin on that page in order to invite the people who follow you on LinkedIn. That means one, if you don't have a lot of followers on LinkedIn, it's going to be difficult to invite people to follow your page. So you need to build your personal following before you can build your business page following. The other part of that is LinkedIn does limits. Your first month, it will only let you send invitations to 100 contacts at a time. Now, they do say every time a contact likes your page, they give you that back, like you get 1 credit back, so you can invite 1 more person. The following months, you should be able to invite 200 to 250 people to like your page every month. So if you have, like I have a little over 9,000 followers, I think, on my personal page, but every month I can only invite about 200 at a time to like my business page. When it comes to Instagram, the best way to get likes is to like other pages. So if you go through to the home button and show me pages you think I should follow or suggested pages, and you just hit like, or I think it's follow, 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 follow. All of those people or pages that you're following will get a notification that you're following them. And then they're going to be asked, do you want to follow back? And so that's the best way to grow your Instagram following organically. Again, we emphasize, please do not purchase followers. Oftentimes you're purchasing bots and you put your content at risk of being removed from the platform altogether. So there are plenty of algorithms out there that are trying to figure out, are you buying likes or follows? And if you are, for example, Instagram can delete your account or they can freeze your account. They can say, you have violated our community rules by purchasing followers. You're no longer allowed to be a part of Instagram. And so if you have been building up consistently beautiful content, posting 2 or 3 times a week, everything's branded, it looks great, you've got some real followers, and then you bought a bunch of followers, you are at risk of losing everything. So it is not recommended to do that. So here are some actionable tips here. We want you to develop that content calendar that includes interactive posts like polls, questions, feedback, requests, because remember, we talked about on the last slide, the more engagement you have, the more likely you are to get in front of other people who weren't previously following you. When we talk about fostering deeper relationships rather than just increasing followers, what we mean is we want people to know, again, that you're genuine, you're authentic, you're real, you're not a fly-by-night. And so this looks like if you post and somebody comments on your post, you should be liking and responding to those comments. Not only does it look like you care and you pay attention, but again, it's increasing your opportunity to be seen by more people. We also encourage you to share content that's going to spark discussion and build community. So those did you know facts are fabulous because you're going to know your industry or your niche better than anybody else. Share some of those facts with the community because that's going to get them invested in what it is that you do. And that's where you can also start to harvest some volunteers, donors, or potential board members. All right, we are on our last slide and we're happy to open it up to some Q&A. If you haven't typed anything yet in the chat, we would love to see if you have any questions there. You can put it in the Q&A box or you can put it in the chat box. I've got both of those open on that screen behind me here. All right, so final takeaways. So we're going to recap everything we just talked about. We want you to focus on your audiences. We know that every audience is different. That's volunteers, donors, and clients. Figure out who your post is for and where can you post so that you get in front of that core audience. Select platforms that align with your mission and your audience because not all platforms do. For example, not most nonprofits don't need to have a Reddit profile. TikTok profiles, I know are all the rage right now, but really think about, is that where you're likely to find people who support your cause? If not, TikTok takes so much time and energy. It's one of the most complex of all of the platforms to use right now because they're still figuring out social media schedulers that can connect and that can auto post. And we want to automate as much of this as we can. So if you don't find TikTok is where your people are, then don't spend a lot of time there. Instead, focus on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Prioritize storytelling and high quality content. Don't post just for the sake of posting, but really have an intention behind that post. What's your call to action? Who is that post for? How can you tell something in a compelling enough way that you elicit a reaction from your targeted audience? How are you measuring success? Those KPIs should be pretty apparent. Are you looking at click rates, open rates, reach, engagement? How are you figuring out how many people put their eyes on your content and then what did they do? Conversion rates are something that we hear about more in corporate world, but that basically means, for example, if you had an ad on social media, somebody clicked on it and that went to their website and then they made a purchase. That's called a conversion. Because of this ad, we were able to convert it to a sale. Now, for nonprofits, it can look a little different. Maybe it's click on this ad, takes you to the website, you join our newsletter list. That would be great. Or click on this ad, it takes you to our website, you complete a form indicating that you need our services. Awesome. So consider what it is that you're trying to measure and then see what the KPIs you should be setting. And I keep saying KPIs. If you're not familiar with that term, it's key performance indicator. It essentially means metrics. What metrics are you utilizing to determine the success rate of the marketing strategies you're implementing? We also want you to build lasting relationships, not temporary visibility. That means that you are responding to people's comments, you're inviting people to like your page, you are sharing other people's posts, you are building those relationships with other nonprofit organizations by following them and liking their content. Your followers, you're following them and liking their content because, again, at the end of the day, everybody, whether they're a client, a donor, or a volunteer, should feel like they trust your organization, they like your organization, they want to work with your organization. And all of that can be established through really positive marketing strategies. So, next steps, I want you to do a platform audit. That means you look at each of your social media pages, your newsletters, your website, everything that's considered your digital media footprint, and I want you to audit it. That means you're looking at how frequently are you posting? What is the quality of your posts? How many people are engaging with your posts? We're looking at also beyond the platforms that are digital, you have in-person platforms. So now we're also going to look at your events, golf tournaments, galas, 5Ks. Do you have special meetings? Do you have after school events that you're doing? Do you have collaborative events with other nonprofits? Essentially, every single thing that falls under marketing, we want you to audit it. Now, when I say audit it for all of those reasons I just listed, that's one way to audit. But the second bullet, be your own user, or UX, that stands for user experience. I want you to also audit it from that perspective. So clear your mind as being an employee of your nonprofit organization. And I want you to consider, for the very first time, somebody shared a link with you, said, hey, check out this organization. Tell me what you think. You go to the website and you're going to your own website and you're thinking, well, if this is my first time here, would I click on the about page? Did that tell me what I wanted to know? If I click on the contact page, how many ways are there to contact them? If I clicked on the tell me more page, what is it asking me to do? Is it asking me to join a newsletter or follow them on social? What am I trying to get out of it? So go through this as a user for the first time and see how you feel. Did it answer your questions? Were you compelled to be a part of the organization? Or did you feel like, oh, it looks like every other nonprofit I've heard of? So we want you to go through it as part of this audit. And then finally, set up those key metrics to track success, those KPIs, key performance indicators, qualitative metrics, quantitative metrics. What are you measuring? How often do you measure? And what are your goals? So set some goals for yourself because you won't know if you're in the right direction if you don't know what direction you should be going in. So we want to make sure that you are aware of what your goals are, maybe goals around frequency of posting, frequency of creating online articles, frequency of updating your website, number of people who are part of your newsletter, number of people who are following you on different social channels, number of website visits per month. All of these are quantitative metrics that you can track. As far as qualitative metrics, these are things like your Google reviews. What are people saying about you on Google? What type of reviews are you getting? Facebook reviews are still a thing. What are people saying about you there? So we want those qualitative reviews to also be part of the metrics that you include. So at the end of the day here, quality marketing is about connection, consistency, and purpose. We want it to drive action. You start small, focus on impact, and refine as you go. So I hope you found today's presentation very helpful as far as strategic marketing for your nonprofit organization. I'll hang out here for about 30 more seconds, see if anybody has any questions in the chat and Q&A. If not, then we'll go ahead and sign off. This is going to be made available to you in our National Nonprofit Resource Library. We also have our newsletter going out next week. And in that newsletter, we're going to be sharing with you the 5 new resources that are dropping in the month of November. And we're also going to be sharing with you the link to register for November's webinar. We are so thankful that you are a part of the National Nonprofit Collaborative. As a reminder, these webinars are exclusive to members. They're not open to the public. So for all of you you who are on here right now, thank you so much for being a member. And for anybody who is watching this because they were watching it through the library after it was posted, the recording was posted, we want to thank you as well for being a part of the National Nonprofit Collaborative. We hope you tell your friends about us and you get more of your nonprofit organizations that you might be affiliated with or know about to join so that we can continue making a huge impact for nonprofits across the country. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and please feel free to always email if you have any questions or there's anything we can do for you. Thanks. Bye.